Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and hey, welcome! Let's talk about Hero Academia. This time specifically, let's do the manga arc review. We did this for the last manga arc that featured that gentle guy, and we're doing it here because I think this arc was substantial enough that we have enough to talk about, and I'm pretty sure we are squarely out of whatever was happening with this one. That said, if you only watch the anime, chances are you shouldn't be here. Don't watch this video. It's gonna be out of context for you. You're not gonna understand what was going on. So without further ado, let's just get into it. This time we're gonna be talking about, I guess, Pro Heroes arc, the arc that featured Endeavor and the guy with the wings. We're gonna be talking about that one. That's gonna be the main focus. I'm gonna try and have it structured. The overall idea of the video is just looking back at these about, I think, 8 chapters and talking about what they did right, what they had going into it, and what they did wrong, I guess, if we find anything. I am very much looking forward to hear your comments. What did you think about this arc? Start writing your comment down below. I would love to read it. Last time there were a lot of great comments, and I would be very happy if I got a few more because your guys' opinions are as valid. So the way I'm going to structure this video this time around, we're going to talk about what did the arc introduce, then we're going to talk about the mechanics that the arc was using to show its points. We'll talk about some few little distinctions. This is mostly like either little trivia, Easter eggs or something like that, and then we'll go into the final conclusions, and that will be where I give less critical, more feeling based kind of ideas, I think, if I get to that point. Anyway, what did we get in this arc? This arc covered chapters 184 to 192, making for 9 chapters of material if I did my math right. It is on the short side, but I really think that's more of an advantage than a disadvantage. The things that we got in this arc, the big ones, were the return of the Pussycats, the establishment of Izuku's fan club, and by that I mean mostly Koda is totally on Izuku's side, and now we have him and Eri. It's nice. It was a nice thing. I think that's a big deal. It's going to be a big deal later. Introduction of the top 10 heroes and the system and how like the rankings work in general, the introduction of the concept of the high-end Nomus, the further fleshing out of the Todoroki family, including the beginnings of forgiveness for Endeavor. We got the introduction of Hawks and Hawks' capabilities. We got Dobby's Endeavor grudge kind of further strengthened, like, you know, the idea that there's a grudge going on. We got more fuel to the fire for that. We got confirmation that Snatch was killed, which is important only because it was referenced and it plays a part into what Dobby's doing. We got the mention of Yujiko-san and very scary possibilities. Yujiko-san is the person that has the teleportation quirk that got Dobby out of there. We got Hawks revealed to be a double agent. He's working with the villains, but he's actually still working for the heroes. It's just a giant scheme going on. We had Dobby's weird characterization at the end of the arc, specifically what he was saying about going crazy when thinking about families. We got characterization on what Hawks is after, what he wants, what his modus operandi is. We got the name drop of Toya Todoroki, one of the Todoroki siblings. This is going to be pretty much adding more fuel to the fire that Dobby is Todoroki's brother, or sorry, Shoto's brother. And we got Endeavor being self-aware of how much damage he caused his family and showing signs of remorse. That's important for his character in general. So when we look at the big things, we got quite a lot. When it comes to the short arc versus long arc, usually it's better off that it's a short arc because less likely for people to get tired, less likely for more opportunities for things to go wrong to crop up, and then it feels very concise. Within this arc we also had a lot of fight scenes with Endeavor and the Nomu. Those fight scenes, in terms of speaking of the critical points, are largely unimportant because they're just people beating each other up. There are some really good highlights within those fight scenes though, such as Endeavor being able to work together with Hawks and just seeing how pro heroes would deal with a giant disaster. That was, you know, very important, but in terms of the critical discussion, doesn't really matter. But these are like the main points that I would say were relevant to the plot and are most likely going to shape the plot in the future. In terms of a valuable arc, without a doubt, this is valuable. Very valuable for Endeavor, and then for world building. That's the order, that's the hierarchy, I would say. It's Endeavor, it's world building, and Hawks could be thrown in there as part of world building or being established as his own character. But going forward, Endeavor is the one that has the most baggage coming out of this, right? So it's definitely an Endeavor arc, and if you are not an Endeavor fan, it's going to be a problem for you. but otherwise it's still very nicely written. And with that, let's go into the mechanics. What was this arc doing to show its points? Let's start it off with one of the first metaphors that has been going on. Let's start with the motif that was introduced in, I think, chapter 185, the "I'm watching you" or the "just watch me" line that we got from Endeavor. This was the line that started off the arc. It was the line that he said at the end of the top 10 showcase or whatever that was called, and it was ultimately one that shaped what was going on throughout the rest of the arc when it came to the bystanders, because as you go along, you have the Todoroki family watching him, you have everyone there watching him, you have Just Watch Boy, the kid that was just telling people like, hey look, he's still fighting there. It all came back around this idea of people looking to Endeavor and seeing this guy try his best, or his family looking to Endeavor and seeing how bad he is at giving up, or Hawks looking at Endeavor and seeing this guy who actually dared to fight All Might. In terms of the fulfillment of the "just watch me" line and ultimately Endeavor's final visage, this carried its way through like very nicely, I would say perfectly, because just the metaphor itself and the dynamic between the characters and Endeavor was maintained from chapters 184 to 192, and that's pretty cool. That was the solid message. The message of the arc was just watch Endeavor and see whether or not he rises to the occasion. In this case, he kind of did. Now, I mentioned the family, and this leads us into another aspect of the arc, and that was the mechanic of the family watching Endeavor and having their dialogues juxtaposed with Endeavor's challenges. Now, towards the end of this mechanic, it does really play off of the "just watch me," because you have the two kids watching Endeavor towards the end of the arc and just watching him almost get killed by the high-end Nomu. But before that, we had them in the hospital room with Rei, and we had their dialogues being juxtaposed as Endeavor was encountering problems. And the biggest thing that came out of those dialogues was that Rei was opening up the possibility that there was more to Endeavor. So what you ultimately had happening here, when you look at the way that the author lined up the juxtaposition and the Endeavor struggle, was that the moment that Rei opens her mouth to say that there is possibly more to Endeavor, the moment she opened her mouth to say like, hey look, actually turns out he was coming here this whole time, hey look, actually it turns out he remembered that I like these flowers. The moment that you had her saying that, the author was trying to make it so that the reader could root for Endeavor a little bit more by putting in doubt to the idea that Endeavor is an absolute monster. Because at this point in the arc, what you needed was ultimately Endeavor being a bit more heroic so that you could root for him and be more satisfied when Endeavor finally wins out during the end of the battle. Of course, things are not that simple. That said, as a mechanic, I thought it worked. I thought it worked fine. You could see the character changing as if in response to the things that his family was narrating about him. As a mechanic, it ultimately stands there just to make people more likely to root for Endeavor. And it does start off his redemption, sort of, by again putting the idea in that he is not all that bad. Another mechanic that we got in this arc was also the repurposing of previous metaphors to show Endeavor in that new light, such as Endeavor being the worst at giving up and the All Might and Endeavor divide that giant rift that existed between them. We had the repurposing of those metaphors. We got to see them from a different perspective. The biggest example is just the Endeavor All Might divide. Hawks describes that other people just weren't gonna try to cross over into All Might, but from his perspective, he really liked Endeavor because Endeavor was the one that was actively trying. Here we got to see Endeavor trying to build a little bridge to try and cover that gap. While we as the readers know that that pursuit ultimately drives Endeavor to some pretty nasty places, we now know that that pursuit had an admirable quality depending on how you were willing to perceive it. The final message that you are getting out of the repurposing of the metaphors is that Endeavor tried. And it seems that what the author wants to push is that there is virtue in the fact that Endeavor tried to get up to All Might, even though I do think that journey just took it a bit too far. So in terms of mechanics for the arc, they are all very much centered around developing Endeavor, but I think for the vast majority they work really well. The only one that I really had a problem with was the juxtapositions of Endeavor and his family, because when you specifically go into Endeavor's side of things and you see things through his perspective for that one little flashback where he's talking about how he overheats, and then we have him saying that's why you, that's why you, that's why you, and he's referring to his family. I thought that was a bit too heavy-handed, only because there's no indication for us to ever have assumed that he got with his wife for any other reason other than he wanted a powerful quirk. Instead, that metaphor says that he got with his wife because he was tired of overheating. Now mind you, the problem here, and it really is a problem with me, the reader, is that Todoroki Shoto is the one that said that he got with his mother just for the quirk. It is very possible that Endeavor initially got with her out of some kind of affinity instead of the desire for wanting a powerful quirk. It's very possible, but because this just came out of nowhere, it's hard to make a final conclusion. Now let's move into some just the little distinctions that I thought were really interesting, and I just want to put them in there because they were still kind of part of this. This was an arc that did not feature Izuku as the main character. Instead, it had the kids all watching Endeavor as well. I thought it was pretty interesting, and it just kind of proved the point that My Hero Academia can still be interesting without involving Izuku for every problem that they have. So I thought that was really good. It's a good proof of concept. It's a good thing to have it here. We don't need these Izuku-less arcs all the time, but it's nice to have them just to say that, hey, the Hero Academia world is bigger than what we thought. Another thing, Endeavor ends up with 2 injuries that are similar to All Might and Shoto. I thought that was just a nice little I would say a cherry on top of the cake, a cherry on top of the ice cream, whatever. It's just a nice little thing to just say that he has similarities, or he's linked symbolically now to both Shoto and All Might. Another distinction was that when Shoto went out to visit his family during the day, Aizawa was actually right outside bodyguarding. It's cool to see that Yue is still actively being careful with the kids, so props to Yue. I thought it was just one little panel, but it was so cool. I really enjoyed it. That's a really good attention to detail for the author's part. Really loved it. And those are pretty much the distinctions I can think of right now for this arc, or the ones that I saw after reading through it very quickly. And now finally, my final thoughts, my conclusions. Overall, I think this was a really above average arc, a really good arc. I do think that this arc kind of lacks a strong wow factor. I don't think there's anything in this arc that I'm super floored by, but I am very interested in quite a lot of the topics that they brought up, and I am also very interested to see how the author is going to do the whole Endeavor redemption thing. If he even is going to get a happy ending, or if he's going to get screwed over by the Villain Association, or I just don't know. I am very interested to see that. However, in terms of on a technical note, I think this was a very strong arc. Between the juxtaposition of the Todoroki family and Endeavor, between the mother bringing up new facts, between the whole let me show you or just watch me type motif that the arc had going on and the callbacks to that line, it was just strong. Heck, this arc had something that it beat out the Gentle arc in, and that was how the hero and the villain met for this arc, how that confrontation happened. With the Gentle arc, I complained that, hey, this was way too serendipitous. There were too many things that could go wrong to make it so that Izuku didn't meet up with this guy. In this one, you had a situation where the Nomu approached Endeavor, and you could really ask, well, how the heck did that Nomu know where he was? Was it some kind of weird detection quirk, or did someone sell him out? And if you followed that line of selling him out, you would have gotten the nice little treat of seeing that Hawks did to some degree sell him out, or at least that information was out there. And so it was just more satisfying when it came to that clash, because that clash felt like it was purposeful. It felt like, yeah, there was no way to get out of this. And that it feels a bit more rewarding to the reader, or at least it felt more rewarding to me. That's not to say that serendipity is a bad thing. It can happen. It's cool to have serendipitous meetings, but I do think we should keep it under control. Anyway, that's my manga arc review. There are going to be maybe 1 or 2 more add-ons, maybe, and depending on what you guys say in the comments down below, if you guys have any really interesting little topic, that might make for another manga arc review add-on. So if you guys love these videos, let me know if you guys have anything to say. Of course, I hope you finished writing your comment by now, and yeah, till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.